I'm going to spend a few minutes just sharing some remarks about some of my experience, somewhat unexpected path, I would say, from clinician, seeing patients, to academic, engage in scientific research, to ultimately founding a digital health company called Bluedot. Really, the catalyst for me was coming back to Toronto in 2003, and just shortly after I got here, so did this virus that nobody had ever seen or heard of before. Of course, now we know it as SARS. And as a resident of the city and as a frontline healthcare worker, I watched this outbreak really cripple the city for a 4-month period. And this was really an astounding thing for me to see frontline healthcare workers getting infected. We had 25,000 people in the city in quarantine. The World Health Organization suggested we stop traveling to Toronto, and that had billions in economic consequences. So it was really an eye-opening experience that our world is rapidly changing, and inevitably we're going to be seeing more of these threats in the future. I think in some ways it is kind of timely that we are actually at the 100-year anniversary of the Spanish flu. It was actually starting right about this time 100 years ago. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, this virus led to the death of about 5% of the whole world's population. And that was when there were less than 2 billion people on the planet. There are about 7.5 billion of us today. And so this type of threat is something that, while frightening, is certainly a real threat that I think we all face in the global community. And one of the challenges is not just that we are seeing the emergence of new diseases at a pace that we've never seen before, but we're also spreading these diseases around incredibly quickly. There are billions of us, about 4 billion now, that board commercial flights and travel around the world. Last year we traveled almost 7 trillion kilometers around the Earth. That's about 20,000 round trips to and from the sun, just to kind of put that in perspective. So we are moving these diseases around with unprecedented consequences. But there's also reason for optimism here. While diseases are spreading quickly, we also have the advent of big data, we have artificial intelligence, we have digital technologies, and all the tools we need to be able to spread knowledge and insights faster than disease. And this is ultimately what we're doing at Bluedot. Now, as an academic, one of the challenges I felt I faced was thinking about what's the mission? The mission here is to try and spread knowledge faster than disease. But there were some challenges, which is the traditional pathway of disseminating knowledge in the academic world isn't as timely and not as responsive to a rapidly evolving outbreak, which is why I ended up founding Bluedot with the help of Mars Innovation, Mars Discovery District, about 5 years ago. We've grown the organization. We're a very eclectic group of individuals, physicians, vets, ecologists, engineers, data scientists, software developers, designers, and ultimately we are building something that doesn't exist in the world today. It's a global early warning system for infectious diseases. We are tracking threats around the world in real time. We are contextualizing and assessing all of those threats, and then we are using digital technologies to spread this knowledge to governments, to businesses, and to individuals around the world. Currently, we're operating in 12 different countries. Now, sometimes people will ask me the question, why is it that you would take a very predictable, low-risk career, seeing patients in clinical medicine and being a scientist in academia, and decide to found a company fraught with risks where the risk of failure is considerable? And what I answer is it's really the same reason that I got into medicine. There's this lovely passage here from the Talmud in that we, as physicians, we get to connect with a patient. We can impact their life in a meaningful way. But through Bluedot and through digital technologies, we have the opportunity to be reaching millions of people's lives. And that is just an opportunity that's, I think, too big to pass up. So I want to leave you with a thought as to why did I make that leap of faith? Why did I sort of move across from the chasm of being a clinician and a scientist to being an entrepreneur? And I think it's really summed up nicely in this Mark Twain quote here, which is, what are you going to regret? This is what I remember asking myself. 20 years from now, will I regret playing it safe and not trying, or taking a chance on something and perhaps failing, perhaps having it not play out the way I imagined, but to do something that's bigger than myself? And so that was really the inspiration for me to take this leap of faith with Bluedot. So thank you very much for having me here today.